Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Placement Talk. We at Cepstrum have brought to you a few alumni who are in various MNCs and they will be sharing from their experience. Today, we'll be having, as I said in the chat, we'll be having the roles for SDE, Quant, and Data Science. The core and product roles will have a session later. So we'll start off without any delay. Aryan Bhaiya, if you could start.
Hello, hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Hello, guys. So my name is Aryan. So talking about myself, I graduated this year only from ECE branch. So my minor was in CSE. So I did my internship in Sprinkler, but unfortunately didn't got a PPO. So I sat for placements last year, and I got Oracle through the placement process. So just this was something about myself. Jumping to the stuffs like what you should do for the placement. Like you guys have a lot of doubts. Many of you started preparing. So talking about the timeline, so it's September going on, and most probably at our time, the company's test started in full swing from mid of October. So that like you guys still have 1.5 months left. So I'll be treating on what all procedure what I followed. So initially I started with interview bit and completed interview bit thoroughly. So I would suggest you should do each and every question interview bit. You should not leave any of the question. Like I would suggest if you can do it twice, but if not twice, what you can do is you can mark down the questions you get stuck in, or you have to look to the solutions and you can revise those questions later on. So it's a good practice to do. Talking about lead code. So after finishing interview bit, you get a basic idea of what all topics are, and you can solve like medium questions and easy questions. So what I would suggest, start doing hard questions from lead code after you are getting comfortable with the medium level questions, and you should initially start practicing hard level questions from like top 100 like questions or frequently asked questions. But once you complete all these questions, you should try to do as many as hard questions from lead code, because in most of the companies test, many of the questions are related to these hard questions only. Like sometimes you might get straight questions directly from lead code hard, or otherwise some concept is linked. So it's really beneficial if you do those questions. And mainly, companies focus on three main topics: DP, graphs, and trees. So in almost each and every test, you will definitely get each question, one question from DP and one question for graphs/trees. Like two question will be from this only. One question might be from some basic array type question, hash map, and all these things. But hard question will be revolve around these three topics only. So talking about GFG, I generally used to look GFG through for finding solutions or reading some stuffs or theory part only. And talking about the contest, so I didn't solve much on code forces during the placement season because the time was less. So what I would suggest is that many of the questions on code forces are ad hoc problems, and like talking about the ABC problem, like if you are able to solve D and E problem, it's really great. But like if some of the guys are not able to solve those problems, I would suggest just try to solve ABC, as it will provide you a temperament to how to sit in a coding contest in the real world, like how to sit 1.5 hours straight. But I would suggest do the lead code contest at least you should try to do these contests on the real time only, not the virtual contest, because these contests provide much like these contests are much like the real world contest that the companies give. Try to solve the last problem in the contest time only. Like lead code contest is 1.5 hour contest. So initial three questions are really easy. So you should try to complete those questions as fast as possible, and try to solve the last question, which is generally the hard one, in the contest duration only, because in the company's coding round, the problems would revolve around these type of questions only. So there are two type of contests held on LeetCode: weekly and bi-weekly. So there is a contest on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. and on the Saturday night. So I would suggest to give that Sunday morning contest live only, because many of the coding rounds of the companies generally used to be held early in the morning also. So it would provide a great temperament to sit in those type of coding rounds. Okay. So next slide, please. So yeah, so I will talk about the resources which I use to study about different type of topics. So for DP, you can look to the Aditya Verma's DP playlist. Like it's a nice playlist. It contains around 50 videos, I think. So these will give you a basic idea of what different categories of DP problems are there and how to approach a problem. And after that, you can look to this level two dynamic programming by PAP coding for graphs and DSUs. So what I used to do is, like you might have heard of a website called CSES. So CSES contains all kind of different kind of problems for graphs and DSUs. So what I used to do is I used to look at a problem and whatever new algorithm I used to find, I used to search it on a CP algorithms website and read it from there. And if I generally not used to find algorithm there, like most of the algorithms are present there, and if I am not able to understand those algorithms from those side, then you can refer to all the other three sources that I have mentioned here. You can definitely look at after that. I guess the PPTs would be shared with you, so you can look the other three sources from here only. So talking about the time and space complexity, these kind of problems are generally asked in MCQs or in the interviews. So this is a most common question that is asked. Like you need to, it's a good habit if you tell the time complexity of the solution that you have written down on your paper when you are in the interview or in the MCQs. They generally ask these kind of questions. So you can look through the videos by Abdul Bari on YouTube. Yeah, next slide, please. So now talking about the CS fundamentals. So generally the coding rounds of the companies involve three types of rounds. Like there might be all three questions based on DSA only. Some companies do ask DSA along with coding on SQL queries. And some companies do ask some coding question as well as MCQs also. So for that, you need to study CS fundamentals and focus on them. And in the interviews also, like they focus a really lot on CS fundamentals. So I would start in the order of the priority they ask. So OOPS is the most important concept that they ask. So you can study the OOPS from GFG website and practice MCQs also that are present on GFG. For C++, you can look to the website on tutorials point. Like there, the concepts are explained in really a simple manner. Also, for some companies like Oracle, they do ask OOPS concepts specifically in Java because there is slight difference in OOPS in C++ in Java. So, like you can look to this Java Point website for studying OOPS in Java whenever the interview shortlist comes out and you are preparing for the interview in the last month, probably in the month of November. So I also looked at this through at that time only. So you can avoid it for as of now, but you can have a look at it later. Then the most important concept I would say is operating systems. So for operating systems, what I did was that I looked through the videos of the gate smashers on operating systems, and I used to make some short notes by whatever it is told in the video because you need to like you need to understand what everything is going and you the all the concepts should be on tips only so you don't have to watch video again and again so you can revise those notes whenever you are free like last semester the 75% attendance rule was mandatory so what I used to do is that during the class when I feel that the professor is not teaching something that I've already understood or is not that important I used to revise those notes in class only also, this cheat sheet by Love Babar is also a good source where you can revise those concepts really quickly. Talking about the DBMS, in DBMS, mainly it consists of two parts, coding the SQL queries as well as the theoretical concepts of DBMS. So in DBMS, what you can do is you can for the theoretical part, you can have a look at the videos from the gate smashers. And for the SQL part, there is a one video by Love Babar that is around like three and a half hour. You can have a look at that video, and after that, you can practice SQL queries on HackerRank as well as on LeetCode. So Uh, Talking about computer systems, a lot of many companies don't ask computer systems. Neither they focus much on them. Few network companies like Cisco or sometimes Oracle do ask computer networks. So I would suggest if the time is left at the end, you can have a look at that. And even for the system design, you can leave it as of now. But if you have time remaining, then you can definitely look at the resources that are mentioned here. Next slide, please. Yeah, for the coding test, I would say some more important points that you need to keep in your mind are that many companies do repeat their questions that they ask in other colleges. Okay, so it might be possible that some company took a test in a college yesterday, and those questions are repeated on the same day in your college. So you need to keep a contact with your friends in other college and please ask whatever the questions are asked there because even I have seen this many times that questions are repeated directly or sometimes the questions are even same. So there is also a document called inter-IIT doc that is prepared every year. Like it gets posted on some Facebook groups or you can ask your other college friends regarding that because all the IIT students used to post their questions on that doc and you can have a look before the test is there on one night before and discuss with your friends. Okay, so also it's a good habit to familiarize yourself with the platforms like HackerRank and HackerEarth because most of the companies use these platforms only for coding test. Also, I would say if for some problems you are not able to think of the complete solution, and if there is not of much time left, you should first try to write at least a brute force solution for that because there is sometimes a partial marking also. So, and even if you're not able to write a brute force solution, you should try to hard code sample test case also. And in MCQs, like there are questions where you need to tell uh, what is the output for this particular code. So it might take a lot of time for you to understand and get the output for that. So for that, you can use the ID of the coding question that they have provided you. Just in case if they have provided, it might be possible that the complete test is a MCQ based round. Okay. So next slide, please. Yeah, so talking about the interviews, so how you should approach an interview. So first of all, in an interview, a judge more on your approach for a problem. They don't generally they do deserve a solution for that problem, but what they look in a candidate is that is he in on the correct direction and is he taking the hint that the interviewer is giving. It might be possible that you might not get the correct solution for that, but you can ask the interviewer for hints and you get to the correct direction after the hint is provided to you. So that is the most important thing. Also, for the interviewer should give a hint to you. You should always try to think out loud, whatever direction you are taking and whatever approach you are thinking it in your mind. And before coding any problem, you should try to explain what procedure are you following to your interviewer. It might be possible that there are some edge cases you have left, or might be you are in a completely different direction. Then he might give you a hint, or you should grasp those in what he's trying to say and modify a solution later on. Also, it's a good coding habit to provide meaningful names to your variables. Like I've seen a lot of candidates write for loops with the variables which don't really have any meaning. So what you can do is write meaningful variables so that code is neat and clean as well as easy to understand. Also, before submitting your code, you should run that code on one or two examples or test corner cases so that you are sure that your solution is correct. Also, talking about the HR rounds, there are some general questions that are being asked in the HR round. So you should be prepared for those questions and prepare good answers to answer those questions. And it's a great habit to know about the company you are giving the interview for. Like, for example, I gave the interview for Oracle. I came to know from the seniors or other batchmates who gave the internship interview in Oracle that they do focus on Java and ask oops in Java. So if you don't know about that, what your company is doing, what kind of questions they ask in the interview, and what topics they focus on, then it might be really problematic. So try to focus on these questions, these type of things as well. Also, I would suggest you have mentioned whatever thing you have mentioned in your CV, you should have some basic knowledge regarding that. And regarding the projects, they will not go deep into your code, but at least you should know what you have implemented and how you have implemented. Yeah. So excellent. Yeah. Thank you. That's from my side. If you guys any doubt, you can ask me in the chat section.
Thank you so much, Aryan Bhaiya. That was very insightful. I think a few people might have questions now. If anyone has questions, please raise your hand. We'll have like 5 minutes for question and answer. I had just a general question which I think people might have. Like, given they have only a few weeks left, maybe 2 to 3 weeks left, what is the minimum? Like, you give a lot of resources in the slides, but what is the
Mhm.
minimum like they should complete? Yeah.
I think you guys have probably started preparing a lot before as of now, but talking about the last 1 month, so I would suggest just try to focus on coding rounds as of now because it's really important to get as many as shortlist as you can. I would suggest as of now try to focus on hard questions and the questions that you have practiced in past and you were not able to do those questions, try to revise those questions and this is for the DSA part. And apart from that, for the OS and oops, there is there are some cheat sheet that I provided. Try to revise those concepts from those only. And for the SQL part, you should know how to write an SQL query because many of the companies do ask to code an SQL query in their coding contest. So this would I would ask to focus on this for this current 1 month. And regarding the interviews, you can start preparing from November. Like if you have time, you can start as of now. It's always better to start early and prepare as much as you can. But for those who don't have time as of now and like they are a little bit late, so try to focus on coding rounds as of now. And once the coding tests start, you can start preparing for interviews from that point.
Thank you so much, Bhaiya. I think someone has a question.
Also, one more thing I would like to say is that every year there is a restriction on the number of profiles you can fill. So, like at our time, there were restrictions on 50 profiles. So, I would say try to fill those profiles in a diverse manner. Don't just focus on very good companies or like mediocre type companies. I would say suggest applying some companies from each and every slot because during the interview rounds you cannot sit for more than 3 companies because every slot is of for 6 or 7 hours, so you can give at most interviews for 2 to 3 companies. Okay, so if you get many shortlists in a single slot then it's of no use, so try to fill the preferences in a diverse manner so it will be very helpful for you guys.
Okay, I think there are no more questions. Thank you so much, Bhaiya, for sharing your knowledge with us. I'm sure this knowledge will be very practically helpful for us who are going to sit in the placement season this time. Thank you, Bhaiya.
Thank thank you.
Now
Thank you.
we'll go on to the yeah. Now we'll go on to the quant role. We'll have Tanishka D. D, are you here?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Over to you. D. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Tanishka. I graduated this year and I'm in JP Morgan right now. I interned from Goldman Sachs and we'll talk about quant now. So let's go with the test first. Broadly, there are two sections in the test. First would be the math section, and then there's a coding round as well. So, for the math section, they ask you questions related to probability, stats, class 12 maths, linear algebra. So not very difficult, but you should know the basics of probability. And you, the timing is very important in quant tests. There'll be a lot of questions, and you should be like JE, you should be precise, and you should go through the questions quickly. So you should have some practice. um, there will be an aptitude section as well, but you don't need to worry a lot about that. Again, speed is important, so just go through the questions before the test comes, so that you're well prepared for those type of questions, and you don't exactly cover those when you prepare for SD. So it will be very helpful if you go through the probability questions and statistical questions, just so that you can uh, go through the test faster. Then in the coding round, there'll be 2 to 3 questions, not very difficult, easy to medium level. And for doing that, you should know DSA. So it's not to say that if you don't want to do coding, go to Quant. You should cover coding, obviously. You should have a good grasp of DSA topics, cover graphs and dynamic programming, cover actually all the topics in interview bit very nicely, but graphs and DP are the ones that they ask a lot about. I have attached a link here. It's a Dropbox link, and it covers the links to important websites and a probability book, so you should go through that. Next slide. Yeah, so for maths, we had a course, probability and random processes, I think. So if you've done the course, if you understand the course, well and good, but if not, you can go to the topics that were taught in that course. They're really important. And if you've done probability and random variables, if you know about the distributions, then that's 50, more than 50% of your work actually that's done right there. um, for resources, you should complete 50 challenging problems in probability. They literally ask word to word problems from there. So you must complete it um, as many times as you can, because the questions are a bit difficult, and they can ask variations as well. So make sure that you really understand each and every question that is in 50 challenging problems in probability. Um, you can cover puzzles from Bainstaller and interview bit. Again, those are also asked word to word, but puzzles you can do in November, because there's some tricks involved in the puzzles. If you do them right now, then you might not remember it during the interviews, so that you can postpone for later. For conceptual knowledge of statistics, you have time right now, so go through the Stats 110 channel on YouTube. They have a lot of videos, and the explanation there is literally spot on. The interviewers ask variations based on that. So go through the lectures. They're a bit long, but bear through them and then understand each and everything there. Then, if you have machine learning and deep learning experience, it's a very big plus point to have in quant. So you don't need to know a lot of deep learning algorithms. If you have basic time series modeling experience, if you know deep learning models like LSTMs, then it's a very big advantage for you. So whatever machine learning model you use, if you have used, you should know the working of algorithms. So know why you have used the model, know all the hyperparameters, why you have used the metric to evaluate the model. So if you have that, um, they will ask you questions based on it, and it will not be as easy to just say that you have done a machine learning project. You should literally know each and everything. um, I can't see the screen anymore. Riddhi.
Just a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
Di, I hope the screen is visible now.
Yeah, it is. So as I was saying, if you have machine learning experience, it's a very big plus point to have. Know the algorithms though. If you don't know the internal working of the algorithm, that machine learning project will no good. No, will do no good for you on the resume. So the last point, it helped my seniors, but I didn't really go through all of that. You just know it. They don't ask you class 12 maths. They just ask you puzzles, for which I told you to go through interview bit. um, yeah, so that's that. Basically, if you have to take away one thing from here, complete 50 challenging problems in probability, cannot stress upon that enough, and go through all the puzzles from interview bit. Yeah, next slide. So, for coding, what you're preparing for software roles should be enough for this. You should go through interview bit, cover all the sections in interview bit at least once. You can do lead code problems, and you can go to GFG. So, not a lot of advanced topics are needed, but you should, as I said, you should cover the basics, and you should have a good grip of all the topics. Uh, they do test your coding, so they can ask you to write a very simple algorithm in Python, just to test how comfortable you are with coding. So no coding, it's very important to be comfortable with it, comfortable with reading code, writing code, and you should obviously know all the data structures and the major algorithms. For CS fundamentals, you can go to GFG, and not a lot of operating system and networks is asked, but you should know OOPS and DBMS by heart. OOPS is very important again because they test your coding. They do ask you how classes are defined, and all the nitty gritties involved. Then databases are again a very big plus point. They use SQL in the company, so you should know database management systems. um, so yeah, that's about that. Yeah, next slide. Hmm. So the interviews are the most important part. um, Now they don't really expect you to know the answer of each and every problem. Sometimes they will give you a problem that they know you won't be able to solve. They want to know the approach. So what's very important is be very clear about the problem statement. It actually looks very good to the interviewer if you reiterate. So whatever question they have posed, if you say, okay, so as per my understanding, this is what I have been told to do, this is the problem statement, so is that correct? That gives a very positive impression that you don't want to be going in the wrong direction. So do that. And even if you're stuck somewhere, you can just ask the interviewer for help. They're there to help you, and you are also assessing them at the same time. So it's very very impressive if you give off a confident vibe. So again, if you're stuck somewhere, just ask them, so I have two directions in my mind right now, A and B. What do you think, which one should I go to? And then you can explain your approach for each of the scenes. So it doesn't matter if you can't really solve the problem, they just want to know how structured your thinking is. Then anything that you have on your resume, you should know it by heart. Everyone boasts on their resume, they write things that they're not very clear about, but you should know how to present each and every project, and you should know your experiences thoroughly. So in your project, obviously you should know the tech stack and what you have worked on. Also know the business use case of that particular project, or if you were in a company, or if you have experience before that, why you did the project, why were you assigned the project, what was the actual outcome, how did it help the company, because that's what they're looking for. You should not only know the tech, but you should also have an understanding, you should have a business overall understanding. um, have mock interviews, talk to seniors, and very importantly, this is a general tip. And for HR rounds, for example, they ask why do you want to join the company. So you should be prepared for those questions because they also make all the difference. So take out some time before the company interview. Go to their website. Every company has some values written on their page, so go through them, and then you can answer the question like, okay, I went through the website. I My values are aligned with the company's values. It gives us a very nice impression, and it tells the interviewer that you're not, it's just not another interview for you, you actually want to be in the company. Also, after every technical round, actually in every technical round, go and greet the interviewer first. Very small steps, but again they make all the difference in an interview. They show how confident you are, how approachable you are. So even if you get stuck in the technical part, your personality can make up for it. In the end, ask a question. Be ready with questions to ask the interviewer always after any interview. If you have any doubts, please ask me about anything during the preparation, um, before the interviews, anything you can ask me. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dee, for your advice and all the tips that you gave through this for this control. If anyone has questions, please raise your hand. I think there are no questions for now. Thank you so much, Dee, for spending your time and sharing the experience with us.
Yeah. Thank you.
So now we'll move on to the data science role. And for that, we have Tanmay Thakur, and he is right now in Amex. So, Tanmay Bhaiya, are you there?
Yeah, Grace, I'm here. Thank you. Uh,
Oh,
cool. So I'll take over. Yeah. So, hello everyone. Quick introduction. Uh, I graduated from Triple E this year, and I'm currently working at American Express as a data science analyst. So, without wasting much of your time, I'll just quickly get into the testing part. I think the slides are not what I sent them. Can you just go to the next slide? Let me just check if these are the same slides. नमन या अच्छा cool cool ठीक है ठीक है take it to the previous slide please. Yeah, cool. So it's already September 9th of September, and quickly soon you will have your test coming on. So I'll just quickly go through the test. For data science, the companies, they typically have three different types of questions in the test. One is the MCQs, then they have Python coding questions, and some companies do have SD like coding questions as well. So, but a lot of companies are pivoting towards uh, being done with this SD questions at all. So mostly you should expect questions from MCQ questions as MCQs and Python. So for MCQs, yeah, the companies love to test your probability, your stats, linear algebra, and this all the skills. You should know the basics of ML algorithms, the maths behind it, and one of the favorite topics of these companies is the unsupervised learning algorithms. Very frequently, the questions are asked from this one. And for the Python coding part, yeah, you need to know some basic syntaxes for the pandas and the NumPy library and the sklearn as well. Yeah, so most of these questions involve feature engineering with the data frames, a sample data frame that they will give you. And yeah, that would be it. Can we go to the next slide? Yeah, so this is just a screen grab from one of the company's slide. Yeah, this was from InfoEdge, the Shadi.com and Naukri.com company. So this is a pretty exhaustive topic list that you need to cover. Starting with the maths and stats, you'll have to cover probability, the distributions, correlations, and yeah, SVD in linear algebra, PCA, all this. For ML, you really need to focus on the classical ML algorithms, like I said, the trees, the forest, random forest, and you also need to focus on some common ML concepts like the gradient descent and bias variance trade-offs. Another thing you need to know is the metrics. You need to know when and which metric to be used to evaluate your algorithm. And if you have, so I would suggest primarily focus on these topics. And if you have the time, you can go for some other topics, the higher level topics, which are the deep learning and the NLP part. But mostly you won't find companies asking this ones. So yeah, I would suggest focus mainly on the ML part, classical ML part. Next slide, please. Yeah, cool. So the resources, yeah. So these are mostly for revising stuff. So probability and stats, if you paid attention to the probability course in college, uh, that should be pretty good enough for covering test and interviews. But yeah, if you need to revise as well, you can quickly skim through the stats 110 specific lectures. You need not go through an entire playlist. And for yeah, practicing this 50 challenging problems and probability, this book is a must. I think even Tanishka focused on this. So you need to do this book quite thoroughly. You get the answers at the back, but I suggest give it all in solving the questions first. If you are not able to do it at all, then only then you should refer to the answers. For linear algebra, Gilbert's rank, you guys probably must know this. Books or videos, whatever you're comfortable with. Again, just to revise, quickly skim through the videos, I would suggest. And if you really need the intuitiveness behind this linear algebra concepts, I would suggest three blue, one brown videos. So they have a really brilliant visualizations. So yeah, they help a lot in having that intuitive grasp over the concepts. Coming to the ML and deep learning, so there's this book by uh, some Aurelians. The author's name is something Aurelian. It says hands-on machine learning in scikit-learn and pandas and Python. So this book is considered the Bible of machine learning. It has all the algorithms and it is very concise, and yeah, it this book won't waste your time at all. You can, if you need to revise concepts, you should just go through this book and the specific concepts. In fact, just for practicing this algorithms and concepts, you should refer to analytics vidya ki quizzes. You can just randomly google search on analytics vidya quiz on random forest on xgboost, and that should yeah, give you the links. So yeah, puzzles are also asked in DS interviews, and I think in all interviews as such. So I use GFGs for practicing puzzles, but you can use interview bit and other as well. I think Brainsteller has puzzles as well, so you could refer to that as well. Next slide, please. Right. So yeah, I would mainly focus on the interviews. So there are typically three different types of interviews in data science. One is the technical and the CV based. One's the case study based, and one is the typical HR. Let's move to the next slide. Naman, next slides, please. So yeah, so the technical interview is probably the most important interview of all the interviews that you will have for DS profile. So one of the main thing that you should keep in mind is to be brutally honest. If you don't know something, you should admit it to the interviewer. You don't know it, uh, but just don't keep on blabbering something. Uh, and for DS, a main focus of the technical interviews is on your CV, on your resume, mainly on your internship and your projects. So yeah, you should know everything about your projects and everything related to it. So like if you have just copy pasted someone else's project like a lot of people do for SD, I would suggest, I mean, I just pray to God that the interviewer doesn't catch you, but because it is this rounds, like the interview would grill you very deeply on your project, so you need to know everything about it. And and for projects you should, for ML projects specifically, you should have clearly mentioned in your CV what technologies you used, what were the, firstly you should mention the aim of your project, then you should use the mention the technologies that you used, then also present the results that you got. For ML projects it is very easy, you can just give in the your score, whatever score you got in your algorithm. And yeah, another part of technical interviews is again the classical ML algorithms. And yeah, one favorite topic for this interviews is the PCA, which is the linear algebra part. If you can derive it, it's, I mean, it is a very easy thing to do. So yeah, PCA, SVD, eigenvalue decomposition, all these things. I think you should know how to derive those, and that should be pretty good. Evaluation metrics are, yeah, another favorite topic. You should really know how, which metric to use and when to use. So that should be it. Again, puzzles are also asked sometimes. Just prepare from GFG, that should be good enough. Next slide, please. Right, so case study interviews, this is something that has recently started in a lot of DS interviews. So yeah, the format of this interview is basically the interviewer will give you a very open-ended problem. For example, my case study interview, the interviewer asked me कि American Express wants to set up ATMs in India. So how would you go about finding the hotspots for the areas in which we should place the ATMs? So a very, very open-ended question. And so the one way you should, uh, I mean, the best way to approach these questions is to first ask the interviewer what kind of data you have, and yeah, you should ask the interviewer questions so that you and the interviewer can align on the final objective clearly. So yeah, asking question is the main thing in the case study interviews. And when it comes to the solving, ML case studies have three distinct and, I mean, sort of fixed steps. You need to approach any ML case study interviews in these three steps. The first is the data and the feature engineering part. So yeah, a big thing about data science that many people don't realize is data. People think that it is all about modeling and coming up with fancy models and everything, but the major chunk of work that you do as a data scientist is that you work with the data. You work on cleaning the data, you work on generating new features from the data. So I think this thing you need to be very, very clear about it. Once you have the data, you have generated the features that you wish from that data, you should then move on to the modeling. You should check, I mean, you should know which models are used for which kind of data and all. So this one again, there is no one right answer to this question. So it's always the aim of the case study interviews is to convince the interviewer that what you are suggesting is the right answer, although there is no right answer to this. And the third part of this any case study is the deployment, but most people don't expect you to know this deployment because you're just college students. You pretty much don't know about deployment at scale and anything. So if you do know Apache Spark and other big data technologies, then it is good. But yeah, not many people expect you to know this stuff. So it is also all good if you don't know this. I've attached some links from which you can practice and the case studies and all, so you can refer to those. The next slide. Yeah, coming to the HR interviews, yeah, the HR interviews are pretty much like any other profile. Uh, you should have the script prepared for the common questions well in advance. So at least I would suggest at least a week before the interviews, so you could have a pretty strong script and have a pretty strong grasp over it. So yeah, you shouldn't hesitate in the interview. That is one thing. You should know the JD well. The second point, the so yeah, every company has some very specific responsibilities mentioned in the JD. So if you can pitch that you know these technologies or you can learn those, so that is very good. Yeah, one thing you should do is ask your seniors who are working in that company about the company's work. So a lot of this information is not available on websites and other places. So I would suggest you should ping your seniors before your interviews, so that you get to know what does the company exactly work on. So for American Express, they have something called a black box model, wherein they generate the data from the merchants and everything. So this thing I only got to know from my senior. This is nowhere mentioned on the website or yeah. So it is always good to get in touch with the seniors at the company just before the interviews. So I remember one day before the interviews, this is all I did pretty much. I pinged all the seniors for uh, yeah, the work that the company does. And yeah, another thing that is you don't have to be brutally honest here, unlike the technical interviews. You should be able to sell yourself. Yeah, that's I think yeah, that's it. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, so that is it from my side. Yeah, you can contact me on this number. You can ping me on WhatsApp. Yeah, if you need any help. Yeah, I'll probably try. So yeah,
Thank you
Grace,
so much,
that
Bhaiya.
would be it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all of the tips and the experiences you had and the things that you did the day before the interview and stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that and spending your time. Now, if anybody has questions, please raise your hand. I don't see any hands up as of now. I think I think there are no questions. So yeah. So then, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I know it was delayed a little bit, but thank you for spending your time and coming to listen from the alumni who have already gone through this season, which we are going to go through right now. With this, we come to a close. The slides and the recording will be shared via email. Thanks so much for joining.